When I was a young boy, my father took me into the city to see a marching band. He said, son, when you grow up, would you be the savior of the broken, the beaten and the damned? He said, will you defeat them, your demons and all the non-believers, the plans that they have made? Because one day I'll leave you a phantom to lead you in the summer to join the Black Parade.
Welcome back to the Cork Football Podcast. I suppose back in January when I started this podcast, I said that I wanted to be a voice for the long-suffering Cork football supporters because it is a tough station and as we all know, there's a lot more downs than ups, but and they would drive you to drink at times, Killarney being the obvious example, but I suppose a bit like Hotel California, you can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. And I think if you just stick with them, you'll always get that one day that'll make it all worthwhile. And like Saturday, against all the odds, when we thought things were looking fairly bleak, backs were to the wall, and they pulled out something like that. And all the bad days are forgotten, and all is forgiven. We're back up on the horse, and we're back dreaming again. And, those few hours around town there Saturday night after the match, and you had the Cork jersey on, and you're passing random strangers there in the street or somewhere, and they'd shout up the rebels, or they'd come over to you inside in the bar or something, and they'd start talking about the game, and they might have only watched it on the television or even just heard about the result. And they're delighted, and I suppose it's just like seeing people just like to see the underdog or the poor relation having their moment in the sun. And I suppose it's a bit like in the family dynamic there, where you might have a child and they might be living in the shadow of maybe brighter or more talented siblings, and they play a great game or do well in an exam, and everyone is delighted for them. And I think it's a bit like that with the footballers. It's there's great goodwill towards them when they produce something like that. The hurlers, they kind of operate in a different plane. There's constant success expected and almost demanded, and it's probably not appreciated as much, the success that the hurlers have. The Cork public doesn't actually appreciate the high standards they deliver consistently. And it's the next 3 weeks now that I really love. And, we'll allow ourselves that bit of fantasy about maybe going to Croke Park, and you might have someone in the media there and they'll start saying that Cork could be dark horses and the possibility we could take out a big gun. And we'll have the draw now next week, and, you could be looking at the Dubs or Donegal or Galway or some other big name like that, and they could be coming to Parky Ring in the middle of June. And sure, look, that's all you can ask for. And I suppose the pressure is off us a bit as well. Like, it's kind of knowing that we have a second bite at the cherry. And if we do hit our stride and take confidence from Saturday, the second half especially, and the first half wasn't desperately bad either. And if we could, win the next game now, pressure is off us. We're in the quarter final, and that would be amazing. And I don't think anyone would like Meath at that stage. But look, we can sit back now for the next 3 weeks and we can watch the rest of them tearing chunks out of each other, and just enjoy that position that they have earned. Because I suppose, look, the further into the championship things get, and the stakes are getting higher, and I was only thinking, the part of this doing this, look, didn't that I don't like doing it. It's the analysis. You have to kind of, and obviously you have to do the podcast, and you have to deliver content, and I suppose in reality, you don't want to be nitpicking about players and management and tactics, and you want to stay upon as positive as possible, but you have to actually call it as you see it as well. But because none of us know what's actually going on inside the camp, and the dynamic inside that setup, and we're really only speculating about it and about what might or might not be going on. And as I said before, look, at the end of the day, they're ordinary people. A lot of them are only young fellas, and they are giving extraordinary service to us and their county. And those few moments on the pitch there after the game on Saturday, it was really special, and it's great that they're getting that bit of that moment in the sun. Just to the game itself, I suppose, just in the lead up to there, when the team was announced, was Thursday or Friday, I was slightly concerned and annoyed that there was no change from Killarney. Now, I don't know, the management, they have their own reasons for doing this, be it tactical or practical reasons for not revealing the lineup, but I couldn't see how not having any change from Killarney would be good for the squad morale. Like, say, players there who are champing at the bit to try and get on that team, and for the supporters. It's great to say that the supporters, there has to be an acknowledgement to the supporters as well, that that things weren't as they should be in Killarney, and a lot of people felt let down, and but it was I was afraid, seeing that lineup, that it was going to be a bit of a rinse and repeat of Killarney, and that we weren't, that I was not confident going into the game on Saturday. I thought we were, Meath were going to be gunning for this, since they were knocked out by Westmeath, and I thought that I was afraid. Really, no, I was very apprehensive, but and I was also concerned that the crowd mightn't turn out with the hurlers playing Sunday, and I was thinking that if we got 5,000, we'd be doing very well. But look, I suppose the weather and the timing on Saturday evening, it drew out the crowd, and I think we had 8,500, and there was a great atmosphere inside there, and everything was it was perfect. You had the weather was beautiful. The crowd, we had a decent crowd, and everything was set up, and then the word started filtering through that David Buckley was starting, and that kind of gave us a bit of a lift as well, and it just showed that we were intending to just be that bit more positive, and we did hit the ground running, I thought, in the game Saturday, and that's one thing I was afraid of, that that we might be sluggish, and that Meath would get the jump on us. And they didn't. I thought we did well. We won a couple of breaking balls at the start of the game. We were a bit loose at the back, but and the backs that were loose, they were actually hurting Meath going forward. Like Tommy Welch and Maurice Shanley there, and Luke Fahey, they were causing Meath a lot of trouble. And but Meath seemed to have an awful lot of space near our own goal, and we were behind that goal now, and in the first half, and there was a big gap between our half backs, and everything was 2-on-2 inside, and there was loads of space, and the Meath boys were just Conlon there. He was just timing. He was just going into the goal mode and just shooting out, won a couple of balls, and we rode our luck a small bit, but I think we realised that was happening then. And we kind of changed that, and I'd say we started kind of closing that space that our boys out around the arc, they started maybe stepping back a few steps, but that had its own problems then, that Meath started getting the 2-pointers, because obviously we weren't getting enough pressure on them. Our kickouts were under pressure at the start. Look, I suppose Meath are a good team. They're very, what I was called, rangy midfielders, and we were getting caught standing under kickouts, and the Meath men was always seemed to be sweeping across into anything that was going long. We were arriving in where the ball was dropping. We were arriving in too soon. We were trying to, compete from a standing jump against a man that was coming in on the run, and you're never going to win them. And we were under pressure out there. Colin O'Callaghan was doing well, but I thought we were under pressure out there. The short kickouts, we had a few risky ones then, that just to the edge of the arc. And look, all it was Patrick Doyle. He wasn't committing to. I think if you're going for a short kick out like that, the ball cannot hit the ground before it arrives to the man. It has to go straight to the chest, and that's where we were getting caught. The sideline ones seemed to be working reasonably well. I think they have that fairly well down now. That sideline routine that they do, like there's a guy batting back in the ball, but look, that's we're going to meet opponents down the line that are going to have that cracked. But look, the kickouts definitely improved in the second half, and I'll come on to that. But I thought our movement up front was better in the first half as well compared to Killarney. I thought one thing Stephen Sherlock was doing, he spent an awful lot of time in Killarney operating down the left flank, and whereas Saturday he seemed to be over on the right hand side a lot, and he was, obviously he's being tightly marked, and there's a man designated to him, and he was pulling him all over the place, and that was creating space for the likes of Cronin and Chris Oak and these boys, and you could see that I thought we were going well enough up front, and I know we had a long build up there to one score, but we worked it, we stuck with it, and we got our chance at the end. I think we were intent on going for goal. That looked kind of that we kind of saw that, and there was a bit of that in Killarney as well, that if we thought that we'd any chance of a goal, an opening, that we were going for it, and that's fair enough. Look, you can't fault that, and I think had Mark Cronin got that goal, I think it could have really rocked Meath, because we were against the wind, and it would have put us. I think it would have put us 5 up. And in fairness to Cronin, you couldn't fault him. We were at the other side now, and I thought just on in the television, I was looking at it, but he did everything right. He dummied around the goalkeeper. He didn't blast it at him, and he kept it low, but the keeper got down very well and just kind of hented and deflected it onto the post. And it was just an unlucky thing. We had another few chances of goals that we didn't. I suppose it was just that bit of composure we needed to there was probably a man free across the square. If we had just or a man running on the run, that would have just buried it if we had found him. But and the killing thing then was that I think it was a 7-point swing then at one stage, because of we missed, I think, 2 very good goal chances, and they got 2-pointers directly after them, and we found ourselves 8 down then at half time. But as I said, we're always vulnerable to getting stepped on the arc in defence, and with that and the way Meath were operating inside in their full forward line, I think we just stepped back off of the Meath guys, and we allowed them shoot. And look, some days it happened for us against Kildare there in the league. We were hitting everything, and sometimes you'll come up against that, and I suppose you just have to adjust on the fly there. And but I suppose we didn't deserve. I didn't think we deserved to be 8 down at half time. No, we could have been 11 down very easily. Colin O'Callaghan, he had a fierce block there in the end of the first half. He was outstanding all the way through, But I think the defending was the deciding factor, that we were eight points down, not so much our attacking. We just weren't aggressive enough. But that's it's been a problem all season. Whether we'll address it or not, that's another thing. The second half, then we started well, obviously enough. Again, we were breaking ball. We started doing well. We were better on the breaking ball the last day than we were in Killarney. David Buckley got a great point, took on a brave shot. It was just a one-pointer, but he went for it. Other fellas now in that position, they mightn't want to be the first man to go for it and miss a shot at the start of the second half, but he just went for it, took his shot, and you have to hand it to him. And I was happy enough with him all through, actually. Definitely, it was a steep learning curve for him. He got dispossessed there in the first half very cheaply. But I think that's just, he hasn't a lot of it played. And that was just adjusting up to the speed of championship. And another thing, I think defensively he was loose. I suppose he just has to learn that if you're not in the mix around the middle of the field, there's always the opposition always have a man ghosting behind you, and he got caught once or twice with fellas going down the middle, and he reacted too late. But then he got the 2-pointer, and that was a super score again. A brave thing to do, and it really set the tone for us. Then I suppose if you're there and you look at, you see a kind of a man making his debut, and he's after scoring a point like that, and then he has the bravery to go for a 2-pointer. It kind of sets the tone for everyone else, that that everyone else kind of steps up, and I think that extra scoring threat that he brought. I think what you lose with Rory Dean defensively, I think we gained with David Buckley in offence. But and I suppose we have to realise is that that as you'll progress in the championship now, it's all about being positive and going forward. Like, negativity isn't really going to get you any further in the championship. And it'll be about scoring threat, and I thought he brought that. But in fairness to Rory Dean, when he came in, he put in a mighty shift, and it was, I think that if we are to go to another level, we will need to David Buckley, the scoring threat from the 2 points, and he'll take pressure off the likes of Sherlock as well, and he'll take attention away from him. And another thing we'll need to do as well is we have to play more heads up. There were numerous times the last day that we had men free when we were breaking from defence, and we weren't even interested in looking up to see if there was space and men free. There was actually one stage there that Chris Hogue was inside in the square all on his own. The Meath goalkeeper was frantically waving his arms for someone to come back and mark Chris Hogue, but we were outside. We were dilly-dallying outside and the 65, and another time we hit a great crossfield ball. They were after pressing us in defence, and in fairness, we hit a ball across the field in defence, and we had all the left hand side of the field free. And you think when you do something like that the next obvious thing, that if you hit a ball across the defence and it goes right for you, that the next obvious thing would be the kick pass again, long kick pass, and it was on, but we didn't do it. I think it was David Buckley got the ball and he didn't, and you could actually hear the cries of frustration in the crowd of people were getting very frustrated with that. But I suppose we went into a spell then that we were starting to get a few, I suppose, unlucky decisions. You call them bad decisions as well. There was a push on Maurice Shanley there. He was attacking at one stage, and he didn't get it. Now, Sean McDonald was very lucky not to get pulled for. He pulled a Meath man back who was true, and had he got the ball, he was true on goal. Cawley didn't see it, and we were lucky to get away with that. So look, it's kind of swings and roundabouts. And then you had the red card for Colm O'Callaghan. Look, I suppose I won't. Obviously, it was he was unlucky, but you see what you have with referees, and certain referees, they have kind of pet hates, and obviously it's a thing that they want to stamp out of the game as well, and it is happening a lot. Is, a fella comes down with the ball, and you have this kind of forearm, kind of lead with the forearm in, and our friend back in Kerry, David Clifford there, he obviously he's an unbelievable footballer, but he does raise the hand nearly all the time when he's he has the power, and he raises the arm, keeps the arm high all the time, and if you get a puck of a forearm into the nose like that or into the face, it really throws a defender, and I'd say the GA and they're probably every referee has his own hobby horse. Some fellas it's picking off the ground, other fellas in the hurling it's the hand pass, and that they have their little thing, and I think that's what caught, and that's why Cawley was so adamant he didn't even go to the sideline. Once he saw that, he was straight out with the red card. It was harsh, but I have a funny feeling it's not going to be rescinded. But we wait and see. And straight away after that, then Brian O'Driscoll, it was exactly the same thing. It was kind of before he boxed off the Meath attacker. He just caught it. He put it through his arm back, and he just caught him in the face. It was nothing like O'Callaghan's will know, but again, got the card for it. And look, if a referee is doing anything like that, you can't. You just have to be aware of it. But Ian Maguire then really stepped up, I thought, when Callaghan went off. Like, he had been, I thought he had struggled throughout the game. He tends to get caught under the ball, the kickouts a lot. He's not rangy. He doesn't have the speed and the feet to do what the midfielders do, or the likes of Colin O'Callaghan. But he is a great man under the ball if his opponent is standing with him, but definitely there was a few times he didn't get up in the air at all, and we were being cleaned out in the middle of the field. But when Colin McCallan went off, he really stood up and won a few vital kickouts, showed for sharp kickouts as well, which wouldn't be his thing a lot of time. Like he'd really be maxed out speed wise, to be showing for one of them. But and obviously Sherlock was extraordinary then when it was needed, and numerous other players as well, and I'll go through that. But I think with Sherlock as well, he put in a fierce defensive shift, really pressured them on the kickouts, and any time that they had possession inside in their defence, he was in front of us there now in the second half, and by God, he did work hard. And obviously got the 2 pointers as well. But I suppose the position we were in, it kind of demanded it, and he had to go for it. And I suppose it was a case of, the pressure was off, and he just went for it. And I actually think if he had his time over again in Killarney, he would have had a few more cracks with his right foot. He was kind of, he kicked the ball there Saturday, and in a split second he'd have kicked. He had them chances in Killarney to do that. And probably not as far, definitely well inside the arc he was, but he wasn't going for them, and he was going down, turning onto his left, and it didn't go well for him. But look, he'll obviously he learned from that as well. And Daniel O'Mahony, he had a savage score, and obviously that was a well-rehearsed move, because we'd have got cut for the 3-man back if someone had to swap with him for that. So it was, it was a great move for him to come up, and then not alone to come onto the ball, but the composure to put it over the bar. And Shanley won a great kick out on the run as well. A difficult thing to do when ball coming over your shoulder like that, and there was two. If he didn't gather it, there was 2 Meath men there ready to go, and they'd have been gone, and he would have been caught badly out of position. So look, they did take risks, and Doyle as well in goals. I suppose it all came down that, I suppose, the fact that we could afford to lose the game, and we could afford to lose the game, and we were down to 14 men, and we were coming from behind, and I think Doyle just went for it with the kickouts. He committed to, when he was going for those medium range kickouts there that he was successful with. The ball wasn't hitting the ground before it got to the men. He was just going for it, and he'll have to realise that if you are doing that, that's the only way you can do it. And look, and if they go wrong, they go wrong. But they're more than likely, if you're trying to nurse those kicks, and it's just milliseconds, but the ball is just that bit slower getting to the men, and he's swallowed up. But no, in fairness to Doyle, he was very good. Tommy Welsh obviously did well enough in the first half as well, but he really drove at him then in the second half. And as I said, Sherlock got man of the match, kicking 14 points. He didn't get a point from play until the 44th minute, I think. But once he started kicking, and once he found his range, he was savage. But I thought my man of the match on the day, I thought was Mark Cronin. He got some crucial scores at vital times, and he put an amount of ball through his hands, never panicked. And I really thought he was excellent. Probably the best game I've seen him playing for Cork. He's always like, he was everything that he's good at. He really put that into practice on Saturday. And I'll just come back to him again when I was talking about Chris Oak and Rory Dean as well. Massive 20 minutes when he came in. He was everywhere. And Sean Welsh did well when he came in, ran hard, won a good free. A big man like that, when he's running hard at defences, I think it really spooks them. Like, he went down the wing a few times. I'd like to see, if he does come on, if we could work him down the middle a bit more, running at defences down the middle. I think it's something that when he starts motoring, he's a strong man. But look, we really dug it out, and Roder look a bit at the end. All right, it wasn't. Look, I'm nitpicking now, and I thought we were, our kickouts went kind of a bit haywire at the end again, and we were lucky. Meath kicked that last sideline. They just kicked it away. I don't know. They kind of panicked. Meath looked like us in Killarney actually, and it was. They started. They were very disjointed. But they did have a shot at the end that wasn't too far wide, and it would have been a shame if they had levelled it. But there are things we just have to iron out if we're going to step up to the next level. And I was listening to the analysis on the GA Plus there after on Sunday, and I suppose the consensus on that panel was that Cork and Meath, they don't have the game smarts of the top level teams, the Armaghs, Donegal, and the Kerrys. That's where that's really where we are playing second fiddle. If you look at Donegal, they're 15 and when they 15 and 15 in Killarney, the hand passing and the movement, like, we're trying to do the same thing as them, but they are just, their movement is unbelievable. And their hand passing is so crisp, and it's, I look whether we can step up on that side of it. I suppose the time frame is very short, but and it was Darren O'Sullivan, the Kerry fella there. He made a very revealing comment about Cork. He said Cork were the smarter team on Saturday against Meath, and he said it's not too often you say that about Cork, and I know that kind of annoys and bristles with us when we hear that, but it's hard to disagree with him. Meath were a bit naive, I think. They had a big lead there in the second half. I thought that they didn't shut Sherlock down like Kerry did. Fair enough, Kerry have better, probably, there's no probably about it, they have better defenders, but I thought Meath were a bit naive, a bit open. But look, we got what we wanted, and we are where we want to be now, and we're in the winner's pot. I was getting a great kick there. I was out with Kerry fellas there Saturday night, and we were around about the permutations down the line, and I had to get in the dig a few times that we are in the winner's pot and they're in the loser's pot, and so it was enjoyable to be able to say that for once. But look, we're going to get a free shot of obviously it'll be whoever it'll be, but I would say the bigger the better. To be honest, I wouldn't have much interest. I wouldn't. If we get drawn against a Westmeath now or a Loud or someone like that, grand, we'll take it. But I'd have no hesitation about us taking on the likes of Tyrone there now, or Roscommon, or any of these boys, or Galway, or obviously Donegal. We'd give them enough for two, and we wouldn't fear them. You see. That's the one thing we wouldn't, and as I've often said, we usually play up to the standard of our opposition, and like we could get a Loud there now, and we could go down to very, very kind of kind of boring kind of football again, and they'll drag you down to that, and we could play Donegal, and it could be a 2-point game, and it could go either way. But look, we'll have the likelihood is that we'll probably be without Colm O'Callaghan. And he's going to be a huge loss, but it's not the end of the world. I think, look, if we're on about getting to the quarter-final, or maybe even a bit beyond it, I know that I might be getting a bit carried away on that now, but Colm O'Callaghan is number one. It's not it's not the end of the world if he's out, because we can afford to lose the game. And he'd be back for an eliminating game then, if necessary, if it came to that, and he'd be rested, and it would give a chance for others just to step up. And I think it would expand our squad, our actual. We have a very, very small actual playing squad. We have our 26, but as for fellas that can actually go out and impact, we wouldn't be as strong as other teams. And I think that if we could get one or two more fellas up to speed, and we did find ourselves in a quarter-final or maybe a semi-final, we really could do with that bit of expansion in our playing, in our playing ability, and fellas that we can bring in and start. So arrested Colm O'Callaghan coming into a quarter-final or eliminator, I think it would be big. And look, we'll have Sheedy, hopefully he'll be back, and Hugh Hurley is back in the picture. Great to see that as well. And I think so there is that little chink of hope is back, and we can dare to dream. And someone might, you'd never know what could come down the track. Look, I suppose another thing is we have to start converting goal chances. Chris Oak was quiet again Saturday. I suppose Killarney knocked his confidence a bit. He was really shut down in Killarney, and I always said that about Chris Oak when he came into the panel first. It took him nearly 2 years. He couldn't hold on to the ball when it had come to him first. He was always taking him a second touch to actually control the ball. But he's actually got that out of his system, but I think that if he got 2 goals in a big game, I think that could actually I think he could go to another level. I think he's a confidence player, and I was just talking there about Mark Cronin and himself, like the contrast between the two of them, two corner forwards. But and I think I'd put it down to, look, and no disrespect to Valera, but I think it comes Mark Cronin being with Nemo, and he's with them there since he was 5 years of age, and he has watched the likes of Paul Kerrigan and James Masters and these fellas, and even I suppose even the Joe Kavanaghs were probably when he was finishing up, and another few of them, real top class finishers, and whereas Chris Oak wouldn't have been exposed to that, and I think just Cronin's calmness is I think it's a real Nemo thing. Like another thing I'd been interested in too, to see, like when Rory Dean came on there on Saturday, I said he had to come on when Callaghan was sent off, but I'd be interested to know would he have come on before Corbett had Callaghan not been sent off? But and I think it probably would have been, if Callaghan hadn't got sent off, I think it would have been a mistake not to have brought, or it would have been a mistake to have brought Dean on before Corbett. I think, as I said there before, that this is going to be about positivity and going for it, not trying to hold on to what we have. But obviously we had to do that on Saturday. But so that's all. There's enough more to say on it. It's great to have these 3 weeks now. We can relax and we can look forward to the rest of them, tearing strips out of each other, and it'll be interesting to see the draw now. And I think it's Tuesday week. And look, and before I leave, the Miners as well. They had a great win last Monday night in the rain. It was, look, obviously, and we backed up the under-20s as well. We're going toe-to-toe with Kerry now underage in them this year, and I think our Miners next year, someone was saying that they're supposed to be very good, and if we can build on that, and the one thing I would say about them is the 20s as well, that you could pick out fellas nearly already, and the Miners, which is we had a great midfielder there and a centre back in the Miners. You could nearly see fellas that are that you'd be nearly earmarking them, that they could be coming through in a few years' time. And I think we have a few forwards as well. Big men up front that they might be raw. I was saying Ricky Barrett there with the 20s, and there was that guy that came on the last day. I can't think of his name now. Riley something, and the man that started from Ahina, Barry. They're big men, and that's the one thing we really don't have. We don't have a kind of a target man, a fella that can play. That gives defences that bit of something else to worry about, that the ball could go along to them, and we don't have that at senior level. And I think that there are a few fellas coming through, and they mightn't be David Clifford's, or they mightn't be top class skill wise at the moment, but I think if they get the right coaching and the right structure with them, I think that they have that bit of there's just that something about them that I think we need. We have loads of dinky forwards and fellas that can that are good on the ball and all that, but we really don't have anything, big men there. You see Roscommon there last week, and they have big men inside, and nearly all the teams have it now, especially the teams that are going for it. They always nearly they have someone inside in the full forward line that you could just let a ball into, and that he could handle himself. So it's great to see the Miners. Hopefully that they'll build on that now, and fair play to Keith Ricken. He seems to be very good with getting the most out of young fellas, and that'll be interesting to see how we'll get on the rest of that championship. So look, there's an awful lot more to say, and I'll leave it there, and God bless.